الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن سار على سبيله إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So as mentioned, we're mentioning some rulings regarding Salat al-Witr, as it's also from that which is considered to be a part of Salat al-Layl. But it's separate from, it's important for us to just mention some of those matters related to Witr. Now, Salat al-Witr is something that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam ما ترك حضرا ولا سفرا. He never left, whether he was a resident or whether he was traveling, and he always prayed witr. Of the things that is mentioned, that some scholars they mention إنه يكره كراهة شديدة للمسلم أن يترك وتره. They say that it's highly disliked or strongly disliked for a Muslim to leave off Salat al-Witr. And of the things that distinguish Salat al-Witr than it is the permissibility to make it up if you don't pray it. يعني هي من السنن القلائل التي يشرع قضاؤها. It's قضاؤها. It's from those few sunan that is permitted for a person to make it up if they miss the time, after Fajr. So, of the things that is mentioned, if Fajr had come upon a person and he didn't pray witr, يشرع له قضاؤه. It's legislated for him to make it up. However, there are two restrictions to that. The first restriction is that it has to be during the day. Now, during the day of the following day, after Fajr, during that day. And some say it has to be up until Zawal, before Dhuhr enters. Because once Dhuhr comes in, فَيَكُونْ مَضَى نِصْفُ النَّهَارِ, half of the day is gone. Also of the things that's mentioned, if he delays it to the night, then he's missed the time of making it up. The second condition of making up witr is that it's for a person who is their norm to pray witr. They say if you don't normally pray witr, then don't just pray it. You can't just make it up because you missed it one night. If you don't usually pray witr. فمن كانت عادته أن يصلي وترا فيجوز له أن يقضيها يقضي هذه الصلاة إذا فاتته. And a person who is accustomed to, that's their norm, that they normally pray witr usually, and they happen to miss it, then it's permitted for that person to make it up. Also, you have those, witr is not to be made up. You have those from Ahl al-Amn say, and then witr la yuqda. So whoever misses it, then for them is to pray Salat al-Duha instead. So Salat al-Duha is after the sun has risen up until Zawal entering of Dhuhr. So what they should do, he said, for example, let's say you normally pray witr 3 rak'at. Then you pray duhan 4 rak'at. Salat al-Duha 4 rak'at, mathna in twos. And if you pray witr 5 rak'at, then you do 6 rak'at for Salat al-Duha. That's all the things that is mentioned by Ahl al-Ilm. You should pray witr after tahajjud. That's the sunnah. Not after. If you're praying in the night, you should end with tahajjud. You should end, if you pray the night prayer with tahajjud, you should end with witr, not you shouldn't pray witr after Isha unless you're not intending to pray from the night. Also, the thing that's mentioned, the hadith of the Prophet mentioned, فَإِذَا خَافَ أَحَدُكُمَ الصُّبْحَ فَلْيُوتِرْ بِرَكْعَةٍ. If one of you fears that the end of the morning prayer is going to enter, the morning is going to enter, then pray one rak'ah for witr. And it's because they mentioned there's two meanings that this has. One, the ending of Salat al-Fajr, the time of Fajr, if that time enters, if you fear that time is going to enter, you should pray one rak'ah for witr so you don't miss the time. Some they say what is mentioned, it means as Salat al-Subh. Salat al-Subh, i.e. the actual Salat al-Subh. So they say, let's say the time had run out, then you can pray it between the adhan and the iqamah. And that is a statement of about 10 of the companions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that you could pray the witr if you was about to miss it due to extending your qiyam, that you almost missed the witr, then you pray it between the adhan and the iqamah of Salat al-Subh. Salat al-Subh meaning Salat al-Fajr. The reason why Salat al-Witr is called Salat al-Witr is because laysa shafa'an. It's not odd, it's not even numbers. Rather, no matter how much times you do rak'atayn, you should always end with one rak'ah, witr. The intention of witr, then it comes with ending with one rak'ah at the end. And they mentioned from the names of this, you have the witr al-nahar, the witr of the day is Salat al-Maghrib. And witr al-layl, the witr of the night, is the one that person prays after they've prayed qiyam. And if you don't pray qiyam, then you pray 2 rak'ah and 1 rak'ah of witr. هذا يكفيك inshallah. Now, the person should try their best to observe this. As the person who never left it off, whether he was traveling or resident. As for how many rak'ah a person prays or how it's prayed, Salat al-Witr, then one, you pray in sets of 2 rak'ah, 2 rak'ah. Every time you do 2 rak'ah, you do 1 taslim. Okay? You do the taslim of every rak'atayn. So every 2 rak'ah, and then you have 1 additional rak'ah. That's of the ways it's done. Or, for example, if you're doing 3 rak'ah, you can do 1 taslim at the end with 1 tashahhud. So it's different from Salatul Maghrib. So you do 3 rak'ah, you don't do taslim on the second rak'ah, tashahhud. You don't do tashahhud in the second rak'ah, you get straight up and then you finish the third rak'ah. And what's mentioned, there's no evidence that is authentic of praying 3 rak'ah witr just like you pray Maghrib. No. As for some of the Hanafi, those of the Hanafi madhab have narrated, then it's not authentic. So if a person has 3 rak'ah, the sunnah is to pray it without the first tashahhud, only the tashahhud al-akhir and the salam. Also was mentioned, Prophet prayed it as 5 rak'ah with 1 salam and 7 rak'ah with 1 wasalam. All of that has been narrated from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. As for what is considered to be the best among Ahl al-Ilm, they mentioned أمر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وكثير من فعله أن يصلي ركعتين ثم يختم بركعة واحدة في آخرها. A person prays rak'atain, two rak'at, and then finishes with one rak'at. That's all the things that is mentioned to be the most encouraged way to pray Salat al-Witr. All the things that's mentioned, what the Prophet used to recite during Salat al-Witr is in 3 rak'at he would do Sabbih isma rabbikal a'la, Surat al-Kafirun, and Surat al-Ikhlas. And that's what is mentioned regarding that he would recite during Salat al-Witr. Also, the things that is mentioned that is related to Salat al-Witr, al-Qunut. Al-Qunut, which is the dua. And of the things that is mentioned, that the Prophet Muhammad in the hadith of Hassan bin Ali, anhuma, he mentioned that from the number of different narrations that it came, different chains in the Tirmidhi, that the Prophet taught him to say in his dua in the qunut fil witr, Allahumma hdina fi man hadayt wa afina fi man afayt wa tawallani is for everyone, fi man tawallayt, to the end of the hadith. And it shows that the teaching of the Prophet Muhammad teaching that dua shows that it is something that is recommended to be said. As for the Prophet Muhammad mentioned, and there's nothing narrated that he made dua like this in his salah. And that's why Imam Ahmad rahimahullah mentions ليس يروى في القنوت عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم شيء. He mentioned nothing has been narrated regarding the qunut from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nothing's been narrated. But the fact that he taught this to Hassan ibn Ali and shows that it's something that is legislated to be done. Of the things mentioned when it comes to dua al-qunut, فالسنة للمسلم أن يقنط بجوامع الكلم. That person is those supplications that are comprehensive and doesn't make dua with something that is prohibited. Also, of the thing that's mentioned, and the person said, سيأتي من أمتي أقوام يعتدون في الدعاء. They're going to come people that they transgress when it comes to dua. And of the ways that people transgress when it comes to dua, they focus so much on the rhythm. And they prolong the dua, focusing on making sure it rhymes. And it has a melody towards it. Rather than being focused upon that which they're actually asking for. Now, and that's what you find in some people are moved more by dua, just the melody of the dua, than the actual meaning itself. Where they'll cry from this and not cry from listening to the Quran. And as we know from the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, ما كان يحب يطال في الدعاء. يعني كان يحب أن يدعو جوام الكلم كما قال الله تعالى ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة في الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. هذا دعاء جامع. Or the thing the Prophet used to like when he made dua is to make it comprehensive, few words with great meaning. But as you find some people are standing qunut for 20 minutes, هذا خلاف السنة. It's not the way of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rather, يكون إيذاء الناس, it becomes a way of harming the people. Or someone who's doing qunut for 45 minutes. I've seen this video of the person doing qunut so long. هذا لك في بيتك أنت. That's for you to do at home. But as for doing it for the general people, لا. This should not be done. Because you have to remember that behind you are those who are young, lack concentration, and those who are old, not able to stand for so long. So the Imam has to bear in mind the types of people that are praying behind him. Also, of the things that a person should not worry about, let's say you was busy reading the Quran and praying voluntary salah, if you forgot to make dua. One shouldn't worry about this. Why? Because Allah from the thing that's mentioned, Muslim said, شَغَلَهُ ذِكْرِي عَنْ مَسْأَلَتي أَعْطَيْتُهُ أَفْضَلَ مِمَّا أُعْتِي السَّائِلِينَ. That Allah, He mentions, whoever was busy with my remembrance, that they forgot to ask me, I give them better than that which those who ask me would have been given. So if you're too busy with ibadah that you forgot to actually make dua, this is not harmful. This is something good because you're busy with worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anyway. Allah will give you that which you would have asked for. Another thing that is important that a person mentioned, if a person prays witr in the earliest part of the night, but then they want to pray more later, there's no problem in that, but you just don't pray witr again. And that's because there's a prohibition and يجمع الوترين في ليلة واحدة. Is prohibition in combining between two Salatul witrs in one night. I mentioned the Prophet mentioned إذا أوترت من أوله فلا توتر من آخره. Or لا وتران في ليلة. They have these ahadith, there's no two witrs in one night. And if you make witr in the earliest part of the night, don't make it in the latter part of the night. of the thing that's mentioned, the last point that's mentioned, when it comes to praying witr with the imam, I mentioned if a person wants to pray after that, then say that they have a choice. Obviously, that they don't pray with witr with the imam and they wait till they go home and they pray witr. Also, the things I mentioned, and a lot of Ahl say this is not correct. When the imam prays witr, you stand up after the taslim and perform another rak'ah. They say majority say this is not correct. Why? Because it's not the intention of the imam. And they base this on the hadith of Ibn Abbas that he mentioned when he was asked about the one who's traveling when he prays behind the one who is resident. He said, Yutimmu salatahu, he completes his salah, he can't now pray as a traveler behind the imam. He can't now pray as a traveler behind the imam. So that shows your intention has to be the salah of the imam. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. And that's why they say this is the sunnah also. So what is preferred for a person is that they don't do this practice. They don't stand up and finish a rak'ah after the taslim of the imam. That is not the sunnah. The sunnah is that if you're praying witr with the imam, you pray witr with the imam. Now, that's what is best. And that's based on what we mentioned yesterday, that a person has a choice that when the imam is going to pray witr, they don't pray with the imam. Just like Ubay ibn Ka'b, he used to pray witr at home. He used to lead the people's salah and then go and pray witr at home. As we mentioned, there's a difference between Salatul Tarawih and Salatul Witr. Just like there's a difference between Tarawih and Isha. Okay? But there's no harm. Witr is 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. All of those are mentioned. But what's most common is 3. Do 2 rak'ah, give salam, then stand up, do 1 rak'ah. Yeah. That is the most encouraged one. Okay. But in regardless, if a person prays and stays with the imam does witr, there's no harm in that. Then when they go home, if they want to pray more, they pray more without performing witr, because they get the virtue of praying witr with the imam as well as tarawih, which is still better. You still get a greater reward for praying witr with the imam, and also because if you go and continue, so you're not getting the reward of witr because you had a different intention. إنما الأعمال بالنيات. So الأفضل, what is better, mentioned by Shaykh Abdul Salam ibn Shaway'a, حفظه الله تعالى, that a person prays witr with the imam. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. And we stop there inshallah ta'ala. Tomorrow we have a khutbah that inshallah will also be related to Ramadan. Then بإذن الله تعالى ندخل في هذا الشهر المبارك ونسأل يبلغنا رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا. اللهم آمين. بارك الله فيكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.